All right, everyone. I have a very, very special guest today. So, for everybody out there, this is Ed Eason.
Dylan, thank you for having me on today, man. Excited to be here, ready to get to it.
Hell yes, man. I'm really glad to have you on. Very excited, as I've told you as we've been talking. So, guys, Ed has done a ton. Super, super intriguing guy. Tons of followers on Instagram, great videos. But there's a lot more to it than just some of the things you see on social media. And I really want you guys to get to know Ed. We're going to talk about a lot of his background. We're going to get into some of his schooling, some PED stuff. So you absolutely want to listen to all of this. So, Ed, I want to kind of talk to you. What kind of drew me to you first to even have me reach out was some of the MTV, the Netflix stuff that you've done. I mean, because obviously you start seeing those types of things, it's like immediate intrigue. So tell everybody about kind of how that got going for you, what you did, what your experience was like, because we all want to hear about it.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I always say like I'm kind of good at like falling into random shit. I don't know how or why this stuff happens. Somehow it does. I never planned to be on TV. That was never a goal of mine, but it just happened. I took the opportunity. I mean, it's a funny story how it happened actually.
Yeah.
This was back, gosh, 2018, 2019 probably. I did my first show in 2019 for Netflix. It was The Circle. Season
Nice.
1, brand new show coming out. So nobody had heard of it yet. It was still just a concept. And I got a message on Instagram from some lady who I guess was a scout. They had them all over, the United States, looking in major cities. So I guess somebody was in Philly. She's like, hey man, like we're looking on Instagram, like Tinder even, like we're just out there looking for people. We
Right.
stumbled across your Instagram. You seem like a funny guy. Like I just post dumb shit on Instagram all the time. And I mean, at the time, I was just a normal kid, like 2,000 followers, nothing special. Never did any like TV or none of that. But
Right.
she reached out. I'm like, yeah, sure, send me an application. Like thinking she's kind of joking. Sent an application. It looked legit. Filled it out. They called me in for an interview. They're like, we'd love to have you down. I'm like, whoa, this might be a real TV opportunity here. So I guess I killed the first interview. They
Nice.
flew me out to LA to do another interview. Next thing you know, they're like, boom, you're casted for the show. So it happened so fast, and I wasn't expecting it at all. I didn't go looking for it, but we just kind of stumbled onto it. I had a blast with it, and that ended up getting me seen by MTV. So they
Right.
reached out to me, said, yo, we saw you on Netflix. We'd love to have you on our show. Like,
Dude, that is and it's crazy how random that shit happens. And it's hard because I'm assuming, when you have any kind of following or do anything cool on Instagram, you're going to get bombarded with all kinds of scams and spams, and it's hard to sift through that shit. So
oh,
kudos to
yeah.
you for finding somebody that actually was legit, following through with it. And because sometimes you could delete things and be like, yeah, fuck this. Cause I've done that and been like, oh shit, why did I do that? So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, dude.
Congratulations.
The odds of it happening, like everybody always asks me, they're like, I'm thinking of applying. Like, what did you do? How did you do it? And I was like, shit, like it was an accident, man. I really don't know what to tell you. Like,
That is so, so cool. So tell me a little bit about first, like the Netflix experience and kind of like what it was like to do what you did. And I'm also curious, and I'm sure everybody is, what's it like behind the scenes? Like, what do you kind of encounter and what are the people like? What's the fucking catering like? You know what I mean? Because you hear stories about everything. So just kind of talk about it a little bit because I'm curious myself.
I know, yeah, everybody wants to know, like, what goes on there? Like, what did you do? And it's kind of funny. I mean, so I did this show for Netflix right after I graduated college. So I graduated in 2019, around May, and then I think it was August we left to go film The Circle. But
Right.
before that, I had gotten hired as an engineer at my first job. Like a month or two into my job, I'm like, "Hey, are you guys cool if I take a break to go film a TV show?" They were like, "What?" So, whoa.
Oh, you're good.
All right, are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're gold. It happens.
Yeah. So I asked my work, I'm like, yo, are you cool if I take a break to go film a TV show real quick? They're like, all right, man. Like, how long are you going to be gone? We ended up working out the details where they let me go, they let me do it. And I ended up being away for a month to film the show.
Right.
But the first like 2 weeks, like, there was no filming of the show going on. They brought us over, they smacked us in a hotel, and everything was very secretive. Like, I guess they didn't want us to meet other members of the cast by accident.
Right. Makes
So
sense.
anytime that like they would take us somewhere like for lunch, we had a chaperone, and if they were to drive us somewhere, like we had to put like a blindfold on driving places. Now we could walk around places, but our chaperone, I guess, was always on the phone making sure, hey, like we can't run into anybody. We got to keep you guys
Right.
away from people. So for the first 2 weeks, we were just kind of chilling, hanging out, shooting some promo stuff like our little intros and pictures, but no show stuff was going on for about,
Wow.
the first 15, 16 days. So then you finally get in the show, and I'll tell you what, the circle, everybody asks, like, how was it? You're trapped in a room. You don't get to like see anybody. You're just
Uh,
locked away. No phone, no TV. There was no clocks in there. Like, I didn't know what time it was. So it
no.
was like you kind of go crazy in there. That one is the show where like you got to be pretty mentally tough or you're going to lose it.
When they so were you briefed ahead of time like, hey, there's going to be 2 weeks where we don't do anything, and they probably don't tell you all of that when you go, do they, or do they?
I was fully expecting to get there and just start TV. So
Oh,
we got there. It was like a week went by. They're like, oh, any day now, any day now. And then like another week
wow.
went by. They're like, any day now. Like, and to be honest, I think the people that I was talking to, at least who was working with me on the show, I think the higher ups don't tell them anything because
Yeah.
they're telling me, they're like, dude, really honestly, like, I have no idea what's going on. So I can't really give you much information. So the way TV works, it's such a shit show sometimes. It's
Well,
amazing that they even manage to get these things out.
I understand. And every type of show is different. So when I was kind of like your age doing that, I was on The Wire as an extra, and I'm telling you what, man, it was like it was more so I kind of knew what was going to go on to a point, but we'd get there at like 5:30 in the morning, and it wouldn't be done till 8 o'clock at night. And
Yep.
it's such a long day. And I don't know how it was with you, but like the very, very main characters had their own trailer there, but pretty much everybody else was just kind of all standing around talking together, and everything's different, right? But man, I don't think people realize how long those days are, and how just to do like a 5-minute scene, the hours it takes to do it, the setup, and it's fucking nerve-wracking and long.
Yeah.
um
You know
well,
how it is. It drains you. It is not easy stuff.
no, and if you have to do that for like weeks on end straight, because I think people think, oh, it's glamorous, you're an actor, it's easy, you just go talk and act, and that's not it at all.
No.
And you would know firsthand by doing this. So, when you did it extend like several weeks, or how long did it go when you actually started filming it?
All right, so this thing too, yeah, the circle very short. We'll get to MTV because the MTV was long, long, long. My time in the circle, 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
That's it. I think on TV they make it seem like it's a lot longer. Now,
Sure.
granted, we were there a month. The
Right.
first, 2, almost 3 weeks was a lot of just farting around, and then my actual time on the show, 4 or 5 days, and then boom, I'm out. So it actually happened quick, but it was the longest 4 or 5 days of my life.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. So on that, how did they compensate you, or did they compensate you well? And like, so for me, it was like, well, you're going to get this X amount for your day's work, and they cut my agent a check and all of that. How did it work for you? Because I know they're all different.
Yeah, I guess this one was like pretty low budget because it was the first season of this first show coming out. They
Sure.
paid us like by the week, like how many weeks we were there. So we were all
Okay.
there. It ended up being 4 weeks or so.
Right.
But I think everybody made more work in their normal jobs than
Sure.
actually on the show. We just kind of did it for the experience. I can't believe we even said yes to the money that they offered us. But I guess, yeah, we were excited.
Well, and I think that people watching should understand because, like, I modeled for several years and I was in Milan in Italy. And you would think, oh my God, you're doing that. You're just, oh, he's fucking got it all. And a lot of this stuff, when people do this, and it's kind of like with YouTube when we do our videos, it's for the exposure and it's not so much for the paycheck,
Yep.
right? So you being on that, for example, that gets you several opportunities, MTV, for example, and put your name out there. But I think people need to understand you go do this stuff. Like when I got to model in Milan, that's like the World Series, but I go there and there's 300 of the best looking guys in the world, right? And there's like 5 guys that get all the jobs. So I'm over there making jack shit. It's almost costing me to be there. It's the experience, and
Yeah,
getting
it's
out
just getting
there.
yourself up on that stage.
Yes,
It's not really, people do make careers out of it, but I still come
absolutely.
back and I work my normal job. So,
Right,
you
right.
know,
It opens you up opportunities. Plus, you go back to work and people are eventually like, "Holy fuck, I saw you." I mean, it's kind of cool, but I think people should understand, and it's obviously done well for you. And it helps many people, but you guys, it's just like YouTube. There's very few people that monetize and make a fuckload of money. It's like I do it to get clients, right? And
yep.
I'm sure you do it for whatever purposes that you have, but I don't think people get it, so to
No.
speak.
Especially with the YouTube. I started to try and really build my YouTube channel. It's starting off pretty slow. I got my first like 80 or 90 so videos out.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that I put in and the returns, like,
No,
not really making any money at all off of this. Hopefully
no.
someday, but for now, it's really
Well,
just to start laying the foundation.
and so you built your Instagram extremely strong, and I'm assuming that being on the shows helped you to build that.
Oh,
Is
big
that
time.
okay? All right, because I mean, instantly it's like, okay, they see you, they know your name. Let's follow him. Let's follow him. Let's follow him. And then you put out great content, so it's really the word spreads fast. But for YouTube, it's different because that takes years,
Yeah.
unless you do something extremely viral, which I have extreme confidence that you will. And the goal here for me is to get more people to see and learn about you because you've got so much going on. And I want people to see your personality. A lot of things when we do YouTube videos, people see a character, right? Because of what you're doing, but they need to get to know you. And that's kind of what I'm after here. So after we talk about MTV, I want to get into you a little bit and kind of talk about, like we were talking about your schooling. I find that intriguing, but I would really be intrigued on how MTV, how they approached you and the experience there, because I'm assuming it's different than what you experienced with Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah, so after I did the Netflix show, I came back. It came out, we watched it, everything was great. And I actually had a few people come up to me, some friends, some family, but I was surprised at how many people actually came up and said the same thing. They were like, Ed, you did great on the circle, but like, we would love to see you like on the challenge. That's more your style show.
Yeah,
At the time, I never watched an episode of the challenge, didn't know what it was. All I knew was it's a physical competition series. And
sure.
every time somebody said that, like I was a handful of people, 4 or 5, like I got it many times, like, oh, you better apply for the challenge. And I was just like, yeah, maybe one day I will, maybe one day I will. Sure enough, maybe a year or so after the circle aired, somebody from MTV reaches out to me saying,
Wow.
"Hey Ed, we saw you on the circle. We'd love to have you apply for the challenge if you're interested." And at this time, I'm like, "Oh shit, I still didn't watch an episode of it yet." Like, but it was funny because like the foreshadowing of it, I was like, "Oh yeah, maybe I'll apply for that one day. We'll see." People kept bugging me about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, well, maybe in the future. And then sure enough, like I can't make this up. I keep falling into these TV shows and it's not like I'm going searching for it, but somehow they found me. I don't know, man.
But brother, that's a testament to how fucking good you do and how intriguing you are. So that's good on you. Now, I would implore you to utilize this and reach out more and be more proactive. If I was your agent, I'd be like, "Come on, motherfucker, let's go. You got the talent because you clearly got the talent." I mean, I could tell that from the first time I talked to you that I could hear the charisma on the phone and from watching you. So, um, I can tell you that because I've been around talent for so many years and I'm not a scout or a genius, but I've seen it. So you have it. But um when they approached you, did they reach out to you on Instagram, by email, or what did they do?
Instagram, yep.
Instagram. That's
Slid
awesome.
right into the DMs.
That's awesome. I love it.
And here I am. Oh, funny, yeah. So I went back to my job, and I'm working there for another year and a half, or whatever goes by, and I'm like, hey, got an opportunity to do another show. I'm thinking it was like a one and done. Like the circle was all right. That was cool, but now back to real life. I'm an engineer. That's what I do.
Sure.
Second show comes up. They're like, Ed, you can't keep doing this. So we're like, we're going to hold your job as long as we can, but if you're gone too long, we're going to have to let you go. I'm like, all
Oh,
right, well,
shit.
fucking opportunity's calling. I'm taking it.
Yeah. So are you still at this same job that you were at?
Now I'm at a different job.
Okay, cool. Okay, gotcha. What was your experience like on MTV? How long were you there, and what was their pay like, and what was it like behind the scenes there compared to like what you experienced on Netflix?
Yeah, so MTV, well, the first season of the challenge, pretty brutal starting off. It was right when COVID was hitting.
Oh,
So listen to this. We fly over there. We're in Croatia. Beautiful place. Beautiful.
that's sick.
But they stick us in a hotel. They're like, you got to do a 10-day quarantine.
Oh,
So everybody's in their own hotel rooms, but you can't leave the room at all. So I'm stuck in the room. I can walk out on the balcony, and we're like yelling to each other from like balcony to balcony, like, yo, are you all right? Like checking in on each other. Some people were losing it. Like some of the guys that were there, doing it 5, 10, 15 years. They're like, I don't know if I can take this. Like I'm done. Like I'm about to leave. Cause this was the first, real quarantine that we ever had to do for like a TV show.
right.
And yeah, I think COVID really started getting to people because they were like losing hope. Like day 3, day 4. I'm like, we got 10 days of this. Anyway, they call everybody in. It was like day 10 or 11. All right, we're going to go leave for filming. We're going into the house. And at that point, I'm like so excited. I'm like, yes, let's go. 4 of us, they told us, whoa, 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 whoa. You 4, you're going to stay in the hotel. You guys are going to be alternates just in case somebody gets hurt. And I'm
Right.
like, are you kidding me? Like I flew all the way out here, just spent 10 days in a hotel, and now I'm an alternate.
Wow.
Well, day like 1 in the show filming, somebody comes down with COVID. They pull the whole cast out. Everybody has to quarantine for another like 14 days.
Ah, what the fuck?
So it was like damn near 25 days of quarantine in hotel. And I guess the dude that got sick, they pulled him out of the show. They're like, all right, Ed, he's sick. We need you in there. He can't go back on the show. So thank God. I mean, like, not thank God, but like it happened the way it happened. I
Sure.
got an opportunity to go in, but it was after 25 days of sitting in a hotel room just on our own, like no talking to like any, I mean, like we could yell at each other from the balcony, but like it's not like you're going out exploring. You're not like I was sitting there lifting the chairs in the hotel, like doing push-ups, staring at walls. So that was almost, I mean, I think the circle kind of prepared me for that.
Sure.
So I guess that was good. But then the challenge itself, oh, what an experience. Like that one is definitely more up my alley, man. It is like a physical competition series, and I like it because everybody on there, they all are like reality, like TV kids, and they think they're like these badass athletes. They're like, oh man, like I was D1 back in college, and I'm like, well, yeah, but now you're like almost 40, dude. Like you're.
Right. Exactly.
So I was kind of like the young, like fresh meat on the show. I think when I did my first season, I was 24.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was really one of the younger guys. There was not many of us, mid 20s.
Right.
And I was out there just hungry, ready to compete, like a
Let's
dog
get
foaming at the mouth. But I had a blast with it, like doing some of the craziest shit. Like we're jumping out of like helicopters and off of cliffs into the ocean, swimming through caves, like strapped down to the back of cars while they're drifting around shit, like
Fuck.
action movie stuff.
How was
So,
that too? Like the scenery in Croatia, was it pretty fucking sweet? I mean, doing that or
oh, it's so I didn't realize where it was at first. I'm like, all
yeah,
right, what part of the world's Croatia in? I didn't know it was like right next to like Greece, Italy. Like I knew it was
yeah,
over there somewhere.
Yes.
But yeah, it's right near Greece and Italy, like on the Adriatic Sea, and they
Oh,
got some nice landscapes. It's I think they filmed a couple of like the Game of Thrones episodes there.
yeah, I think so.
I
I
think that
think
was in
so.
Croatia.
And it's cool because you were kind of in Europe about the same age that I was in Europe. I think I was 25. I fucked my years up really bad, but I was like the same age. It's a crazy experience because I mean, at that age, even now, you're still really young, but it's like, whoa, it's crazy different. And the people that don't go there, like I stepped on a scale and it said like 75, and I'm like, wait a minute, because it's in kilograms. And
Yeah.
I started driving. I don't know if you drove or not, but I was in the airport in Milan and I started driving, and the car said I was going like 70, and people are zooming by me. And I'm like, what the fuck? But it was kilometers an hour, and I didn't realize it. And
Yep.
everything's different because I think that people that haven't been anywhere, the US is the only place that has a metric system. So I'm sure it was crazy for you when you first got there. Um, with everything, money, I mean, just everything, the power when you're plugging shit in. Like I accidentally plugged my laptop in and it almost fucking blew up because I forgot the adapter, and
Oh,
yeah,
everybody was like frying their blow dryers and their
yeah.
cookers because the European outlets are different than they were all blowing up. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have an adapter. And at the time, I remember I bought mine at fucking Radio Shack that don't even exist. But there's a lot of shit that you need to know before you go travel to Europe that I'm sure they didn't educate you on before you went over there, right? I mean,
No, not at all. I didn't even know where I was going. Listen to this. They told me, "Yup, you're gonna go on the challenge. You're flying out." I think they sent me it like 3 days prior. They're like, "You're flying out. Like you're part of the cast. Like get ready." So I'm like, "Oh shit, that's in 3 days." Like I like it's very last minute.
right.
They didn't tell me where I was flying until I got to the airport, and somebody from the
Whoa.
show handed me my ticket and said, "This is the plane you get on." And I'm looking at it. I'm like, Croatia. I'm like trying to Google real quick, like how far a flight that is. Like, when are we going to get there? And they're like, oh, no, you got to hand in your phones now, too. So I'm like, I don't
Wow.
know where the fuck we're going. Like, somewhere Croatia is. I know it's over in Europe somewhere.
But what
But yeah,
about like a passport? Did they tell you needed a passport or anything like beforehand, or how did that go?
they said we needed a passport and they told us dress for weather within this temperature. That
But
was it.
then if they
So
don't tell you how long you're there, then how much shit do you know to bring? You know what I mean? Like that's crazy.
yeah, well, they told us pack like, 5 to 10, different outfits for like athletic wear, fashion
Okay.
dress. Because they gave us kind of like a list, but it wasn't very specific that would tell you, where in the world you're going.
Wow. That's nuts, bro. Like I wouldn't know what to do with myself. That's crazy. So
Yeah,
how long total were you there?
it was about 8 or 9 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd that go with your job?
Oh, yeah. I think they said, we'll give you a month. If it's longer than a month, then we got to cut you off. So it was
Wow.
obviously way longer than a month.
Sure. I was wondering if because of COVID, if they had kind of scaled back or how they handled that or what, but I guess that's a long time to just bounce, especially after you'd already gone before. So I get it. Damn.
Yeah, they're like, if you're going to keep doing this, I was like, well, yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, shit. So what did you do when you got home then?
So I got home. I chilled out for a couple months. Actually, I tried to start, living the influencer life a little bit, and then I was like, all right,
Got it.
nah, I got to go back to work. So
Sure. Sure.
after a few months, I found another job. Right back in engineering. I started off actually. My first job was doing helicopters. I was in
Wow.
aviation, and now I work in like the diesel emissions industry. So we do a lot of engine testing, stuff like that. So I kind of like the automotive side a little bit more, actually. I mean,
Sure.
that's just my preference.
Man, I'm going to get into that with you in a minute because that's hardcore in terms of what you got going on up here. I just want to ask you, how much did they compensate you with MTV? And then did you say you did a second season also on that?
Yeah, so MTV, they do more of a tier system where it's
Okay.
like your first season, you get this. Then season 2 through 4, you get this. Then
I
season
got
4.
you.
So, not great my first season. A little bit more than the circle,
Yeah.
but still, I was like, all right,
Okay.
I'm kind of making more money as an engineer than, you
Right.
know, being on MTV. But, for the exposure, I'm going to do it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be experience that like nobody else on this earth is like how rare is that to be like, all right, I'm going to go film this reality show for MTV in Croatia. Like,
Yeah. I mean, bro, on your resume and your experience and your exposure, what that does for you. I mean, let's just say you wanted to start a clothing line or start selling apparel or start coaching people, whatever. It doesn't matter. That automatically draws people to you. So it could be worth it if you play it right, you know?
oh yeah.
And I'm sure it's done well for you in that regard. And then in season, did you only do season 2? Is that all you did? Or did you do further than that? Or
Yeah, so the first season of the challenge that I did was actually season 37. This show's been on forever, man.
gotcha.
And then I just got finished filming over the summer, season 39. They just announced it about a week or two ago, and that'll start airing October 25th. So it's not
Wow.
out yet, but it's
You
all
can't talk about
filmed.
it. I got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Understood. That's awesome. Well, we'll talk about that after it comes out. Then we'll tackle that one after, and then we'll kind of revisit that and get into that experience.
Oh, yeah.
So when we were talking before, you kind of talked about your schooling. So I want to talk about what your kind of high school life and your college life and why you picked engineering. And then did you do any sports in high school? Were you interested in that, or what were your interests in high school? And then what brought you to the school you went to and what drew you to engineering? Because I'm curious, because that is a brainy profession, and you obviously have to be extremely skilled and intelligent. So I'm curious. I'd like to learn about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was always pretty damn smart. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. Like all through grade school, like I knew I kind of had it. Like every year we would have like our awards, whatever, like fourth, fifth, sixth, eighth grade, like smartest kid in the class, and I was pretty damn smart growing up.
I
So
don't doubt it, brother. I don't doubt it.
yeah, and I went off to high school. I actually went to an all boys school. My mom had a lot of faith in me. She's like, "We're gonna send you to like this all boys like college prep school," and I'm like, "But all my friends are going to public school. That's where I'm
Yeah.
going."
Whoa.
She's like, "Nope, you're already signed up. Like you're going," and I was like,
Oh,
"Damn it." Anyway,
no.
I ended up going. It was a great school. I would do it again. I definitely would. Like a very
Nice.
great school. Teachers were awesome. Like just a very solid program all around. But yeah, during high school, that's when I really started figuring out like I'm a math and science guy. Like I did good
Sure.
in all of my subjects, but that was the one I enjoyed the most. I started taking all of like the AP college courses in high
Yeah.
school, and physics was my favorite. I took a couple like AP physics classes,
Yep.
chemistry, like just math, science, calculus. Like that's my shit.
Yeah.
So I did sports too. I was a big martial arts guy. I started doing martial arts when I was like 4 years old. And
Nice.
I actually stopped that when I went off to college because in high school, I got really involved in track and field. I was a pole
Okay.
vaulter. I actually had the
Wow.
school record for the pole vault. I
Nice.
might still stand today. I got to check. I got to look in those record books. But yeah, so pole vault was sick. That was like one of the funnest things you'll ever do. Just
Oh, it
flying like
sounds like it.
15 feet in the air. Like
That's awesome. Fucking
it's
awesome.
goofy.
Is it a rush?
So it's adrenaline. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody says like to be a pole vaulter, you gotta like have a screw loose because it's like I've broken poles before, like going up and just snapping shit. You're falling, like
Oh.
not even hitting the pit. Like,
What
but
made you get into that? I mean, because that's a kind of an odder thing to get into, especially in high school. What drew you to that?
yeah, I started doing track actually like seventh or eighth grade.
Yeah.
We had a little team, like at the elementary school. So I started doing like the high jump, the long jump. I liked more of the field events.
Yeah.
And my dad was actually a pole vaulter back in high school.
Makes
And he
sense.
would always tell me, he's like, "Oh, yeah," because they didn't have pole vault at the time. They only had it in high school. So he's like,
Okay.
"Wait till you get to high school. Like, you'll get to try pole vault. You might like it." Like, I loved it. So I was like, you know what? Let me try it. My dad liked it. I might like it. Day one, fell in love with it. I was like,
That's
this is my
awesome.
sport. Like, fuck everything else. So
I
I
love
ended
it.
up going to school at Cornell, both for pole vault, and I got accepted into the engineering program
That's
just because
amazing,
I was
man.
a smart kid. So it was kind of like a double.
Yeah. Cornell, man. That's if anybody, I'm sure most people know, but that's a really good school. Obviously, you got to be extremely smart to get in there. That's a testament to your work, man. So, um, with your math, especially, and I asked this because my dad started training me with math when I was in first grade, so I was always advanced. Clearly, you're far more advanced than me, but I'm a numbers guy too, and I think most people make math to be like it's the devil, and it's so difficult. But if you love numbers, it's not so hard. So I guess my question is, I want to compare it to kind of where I was, just to show just how even more advanced you are. So I was in pre-calculus in 8th grade and geometry in 9th grade. So when I was in geometry, it was like all seniors, and
Yeah.
juniors, right? By the time I was a senior, I just stopped because I had done pre-calculus the year before. So I would have been on calculus. My assumption is you were probably trigonometry or even further than that in high school. Or I don't know how your school went, but you sound like you're crazy advanced.
Yeah, no, we only had up to calculus in high
Okay.
school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, did you take how, let me ask you this. When you get into college, especially at Cornell, how deep of math do you get into? Like the most
Yeah.
advanced classes, because they got to be intense to be an engineer.
Yeah, they have different levels of calculus too. They make all the freshmen go through. There was like the Calc 2, Calc 3. It's like
Oh,
multivariable calculus. Then you get into
brutal.
like differential equations, linear algebra. There's so many classes that you got to grind through those first like 2, 3 years. And then you kind of get out of the math and you get more specific as,
Yeah.
you get down to your major. But yeah, a lot of
What
math.
what was your most difficult aspects or classes? Because I just remember like proofs in geometry and nobody could do them,
Oh, those sucked. They were the worst.
They were the worst. So I wondered if that was just me. Those fucking sucked.
I'm like, I thought this was math. Why am I like writing paragraphs over here about triangles? Like, I don't need
Yes,
this.
yes. What was your most what was something that was easy for you that most people would find difficult? And what was your most difficult for you?
Yeah. Um, like I said, I liked physics.
Okay.
Um, all types of physics. I mean, we had a bunch of different classes. I wasn't
Yeah.
so much like a fan of like we did electricity and magnetism, waves and optics, but I like more of the kinematics physics, the stuff like if you throw a ball, like how far does it go, given
Yeah.
initial velocity, like that stuff I thought was pretty cool. You
Yes,
know,
definitely.
what's the momentum of a car crash if da da da, like that stuff. I
Yes.
like doing that stuff. But one
Yeah.
thing I hated was computer programming. I don't know if you ever heard
Really?
of MATLAB.
Yes. Yes, I
Oh,
have.
I had to take a MATLAB class, and it was so hard I had to take it twice.
Really?
Yeah. So that
Wow.
was the only one that got me. The second time around, I did a lot better, but yeah.
I remember I thought for sure I want to do computer science when I was in high school. And I went up to orientation at University of Iowa and I was looking at the catalog for the classes and I told my mom, she was sitting next to me, I said, I guess I'm switching majors. Like I was like, fuck this. I don't want my whole school to just be math. So when you're engineering, it's really just like all math and physics, isn't it? Pretty much, and maybe some
Yeah.
chemistry, science, and shit like that. Is it just that's pretty much cut and dry what it is?
Yeah, mostly math and physics.
So you're just straight dedicated to that, knowingly going into it. So yeah, you got to really love what you're doing to do that. That's fucking sweet. I'm assuming that for engineering, since that's such a like niche thing that they probably the jobs are they difficult to find? Are there a lot of openings? Like talk me through that. I'm curious into that field.
Yeah, I feel like engineering, specifically, I'm a mechanical engineer, which is
Okay.
it's a very broad field of engineering.
Yeah.
Um, like I feel like if you're an electrical engineer or a computer engineer, like you're doing the coding or you're doing very specific things. Where it's like mechanical engineer, you can be working on designing this water bottle. You could be designing an aircraft. You could be working on, the hardware for a computer. It's like you can work on anything. The next toilet coming out, like mechanical engineers are behind everything. So it's not so much like a very specific niche. It's like you can be in really any field as a
Nice.
mechanical engineer. Like you can work on electronics, you can work at the chemical plant, you can work. So like where other things are more niche, chemical engineer, electrical engineer, da, da, da. Mechanical, I feel like there's a lot of jobs out there just because it's such a broad field.
That is so cool, man. I'm intrigued listening to all this. So I hope everybody else is. This is awesome. So let's kind of switch roles here. And I'm sure that a lot of my audience is going to want to hear about this because you got some pretty fucking good size. I'm wondering, one, when you were in high school, college, what was your kind of stats, like your height, weight, and have you always been, looking like this, or when did you get interested into weightlifting and maybe supplements, PEDs, if you have experience there, and what drew you to that? And let's kind of, because I know that you do that a lot of your videos now, that's what you're talking about, which is how I really looked into you the most to bring you on. So I'm curious, just start me from high school or whatever, and what got you into lifting to start with.
Yeah. I guess it was kind of my martial arts background growing up.
Okay.
Even when I was little, they had us doing, push-ups and strength and conditioning. So I kind of started doing that on my own just to kind of get better for myself. I was like, I want to be the best little martial artist there is. So I was in the basement doing like push-ups and pull-ups when I was 11, 12 years old. I got to high school. Like I said, I started doing track and I was a pole vaulter. But on some of like the workouts, they would make us like run. And I would like sneak away from the runs and go in the weight room with the throwers because they were always lifting. And I'm like, I want to lift weights and get big. I don't need all this running. Like, I want to be a pole vaulter, but like a jacked, good looking pole vaulter, right?
Right.
So I would go and start sneaking in lifts. And, that's really where I started to, not get into bodybuilding, but more just like strength training. Was in high school track, sneaking away with the throwers, getting the lifts in.
Yeah.
Then I went off to college. They still were trying to hold us back from the lifts. They're like, you can't get too big. I was always skinny growing up. I think when I started high school, I was maybe a $130.
Oh, shit.
130, 135 pounds.
Wow.
By the time I got to college, I think I put a little size on. I was maybe 155, 160.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'8".
Okay, well, that makes more sense then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, in college, I was about 160, 165 pounds. Now I'm like 195, 200.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
And
put on a lot of weights. Yeah, I put on a lot of weight since then. But actually, in college, my junior year pole vaulting, I had a real bad knee injury that kind of put me out of pole vaulting. So I
Okay.
was like, all right, well, now I can't do pole vault anymore. I could have. I probably would have recovered in, 4 or 5 months and I would have been back at it. But during that time, I was on crutches, crutching into the gym, hitting the upper body while I could. I was like, you know
Right.
what? I'm going to get these weights going. When the legs, are back to normal, I'll start hitting the legs again. But that's when I really was like, you know what? I'm just full blown weightlifter now. So my
Yeah.
junior, senior year, I started getting a lot more serious into the bodybuilding, the supplements. I want to say it was my junior year of college is when I really started my research, where I got to going on SARMs and steroids and all different kinds of supplements, nootropics, so you name it. I was like, I'm going to research every damn supplement out there, see which ones are worth taking. And I think, God, I must have been 19, 20 at the time. How old are you when you're a junior? Maybe 21-ish,
Yeah.
2021. So I'm looking into like SARMs, and I think that's when I started coming across some of your stuff. I was
Yeah.
on like the forums reading about SARMs, and I remembered your name. I was like, wait a second, I've definitely seen this guy before. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that I was looking up, I'm like, he's been there, done it. So you
Oh
must have
yeah.
been in the game for a while now.
Bro, I'll tell you what, when I started, the only SARMs that were available when I started were MK2866, S4, and MK677, and barely anybody, well, I should say barely anybody, there was barely anybody selling them, but MK677 was only on a couple sites, and it was like $250 a fucking bottle.
Whoa.
Literally. Yeah. Well, back then, and I talked to, because I'm a researcher by nature. So I want to meet, I want to understand. And from the owners that I talked to, apparently the raw materials were like triple what they are now. to produce it. So that's why it was so expensive. But there were minimal options, and I dedicated years and years and years to studying SARMs, and I was ahead of the game on everything. I knew what was coming out beforehand. I had all the studies because a lot of the websites were putting out bad information that they didn't have properly to sell them, and I was ahead of the game. So that's how I got into it. But what so let's see, if you were 19, 20 and you're 27 now, so you were like 2015 or 16 when you got into it then, right? With SARMs and
Yeah,
steroids.
7, 8 years ago ish.
What made you start to look into those? Was it because I'm assuming at that time that's when they started to boom, where more people were selling them because pro hormones had been banned, so they were more prevalently sold as like capsules and supplements that they shouldn't have been, right? Is that what drew you to them, or?
Yeah, I think it was at that point, I was getting more serious in the lifting.
Yeah,
I was getting bigger, but I'm like, I don't think I can get much bigger than I am now. Like, I feel like I can try and put on weight, but I just noticed I was like, if I did put on weight, I would just get fat. Or,
I
if I
got
wanted
you.
to cut down, I would just get skinny. I'm
Right.
like, I want to be big, jacked, shredded. Like, I want the size. I want to be lean. I'm like, my body can only do so much. So I started seeing what supplements would help, what's going to work.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've been doing the creatine. I was like, all right, I think I'm ready for a step up.
Right.
So I started doing my research, and I didn't try my first arm actually till I think 24. I think 24 was when I did my first SARM.
Okay.
So from the time I was about 20 to 24, I researched the shit for years
Good.
before ever touching it because I knew I'm like, all right, this stuff is kind of going to be like a lifelong commitment. Once you start dabbling in it, you go from the SARMs, then the steroids. I knew I'm like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it safe. I want to have all of the information. I want to know which ones are good. What's the side effects of everything? What do I have to take to, complement the SARM that I'm taking to combat the side effects that I'm going to get from it. So
Yes.
I did shit tons of research on every ancillary, every SARM, every steroid. And then when I was like 24-ish, I was like, okay, I'm about that time, my mid 20s. My brain's getting at that point where I'm fully developed. My body's like done growing now. Now I can start fucking with my endocrine system and try to get big.
I just want to point this out to people listening, and people that follow me know that what he just said is like what I preach constantly about years of studying it. And that sounds ridiculous. It does on the surface, but you get it and you understand. And obviously that's a testament to you having all the schooling and understanding what things take, but you cannot do this and rush into it. And that's how all the mistakes are made. And that's how people hurt. So I just want to point that out, that you really did things in a way that I preach, that I personally, and some people don't like me for that, but it's the fact of life that you got to protect yourself. And so I'm so glad that you said all of that. Now, let me ask you this. Have you kept up on your blood panels, and do you check up on them and make sure that everything's in check and in line? Because some people are like, oh, people don't do that, or you don't need to do that. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on how you've done with that.
Yeah, so I started off actually doing it myself through, I don't know if you heard Let's Get Checked.
Uh,
It's like they send you the kit in the
they sponsored me they still do, actually. That's one of my sponsors. So yeah, I'm well aware of them.
boom. There you go. So I started off doing that. I would get my blood work checked, before, after, just to
Good,
make sure I'm not screwing anything up.
good.
And after my first couple SARM cycles of doing that, I did it on my own. And then I went to my doctor. I was like, all right, doc, like I'm starting to take some supplements. Like I've been keeping up with my blood work as best I can on my own. I'm checking it, but I want a more comprehensive panel. I'm like, I want to get blood work. I'm starting to take this stuff, and I know it affects people in different ways. So I just want to see a complete panel.
Yeah,
And my doctor at the time was like, you look good. You look healthy. We don't need to do blood work. So at that moment, I switched doctors.
yeah.
Got a new doctor. My new doctor is great. I've been going and getting blood work every couple months, checking in, seeing where I'm
Good.
at, donating blood. That's another thing you got to do when you
Yep.
start taking the steroids, especially when you're on like TRT or something, or even just big doses of steroids. Your blood's going to thicken up. So I
Absolutely
always
right.
like to do that. blood work, donating blood. You got to really poke yourself a lot when you start getting into this, which people don't realize. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you think you do a couple injections and that's it, and you get all big and strong, but it's like, no, you become kind of like a little pincushion.
And you know what? As you, the problem is like guys your age, you guys especially, your blood work tends to look really good. You know what I mean? And it's going to stay that way. But some people don't realize that longer term, this stuff adds up and accumulates, and it doesn't continue to look good. And you don't realize how it's going to look in 10 years. And you have to keep eyes on things that more so than just a CMP, which is the comprehensive metabolic panels, right? You have to look at
Yeah.
everything, and you have to look at full lipid profiles, for example, because there's different aspects of cholesterol that you have to look at that are misunderstood. So there's a lot to it that you have to keep an eye on, especially with steroids. You should be doing it with SARMs, peptides, nootropics, even though that it's far less of a thrashing of your system. Sometimes people get fake SARMs, spike SARMs. You got to keep an eye on that for your own well-being. So what SARMs did you run first, and which ones have you had the best and worst experiences with so far?
Oh, let's see. Which SARMs have I done? I think my first one was LGD. I
Okay.
skipped the MK. I went right to
Okay.
LGD.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I've done LGD, Rad 140. I've done MK 677 and Cardarine. They're not SARMs, but they lump them in.
Yep. Yep.
I've tried S23. That's like the big daddy.
What did you think of S23 and are you on TRT or did you run a PCT with that? Because I think people don't understand S23 is it's termed male contraceptive because it fucking drains your test down to nothing. It
Yep.
bottoms it out like a steroid. So what did you go through with it?
Yeah, so I was taking tests while I did S23.
Okay, good.
Yep.
How did you like
Yeah,
S23?
after all the research I read on S23, I was like, all right, I'm not touching that unless I'm doing tests.
Yeah.
So I think it was actually my second test cycle. My first cycle of tests, I just did tests.
Smart.
The second time around, I was like, all right, now I'm going to add in a second compound. That was S23.
Okay, good. What was your experience like with S23?
Definitely got very full, vascular. The strength was up, but like I just noticed I was looking like dry,
Yeah.
veins popping, muscles were round, more so than just test alone. I was like, all right, this is a big difference. I can definitely see that just the look. Like I wasn't competing or anything, but I was like, I feel like I could step on a bodybuilding stage right now.
Well, and people listening, this is just goes to show you what I've said a million times is that people will say this, and you can testament to this because you've done it now. When you run SARMs with steroids or test, they don't fucking cancel each other out, and one doesn't counteract the other one. That's not how it works, and that's like a mythical bro science thing. And you know firsthand by doing it the difference between just test and then test with S23. So
yeah, there's a lot of people that think, oh, they're going to compete for the same androgen receptors, and I'm going to get less out of the test. But taking S23 with test, it was a step up.
If I didn't love my fucking hair so much, I'd pull it out from that nonsense, from hearing that bullshit. I got to tell you, man. And you went straight to LGD 4033 because obviously 3303 wasn't out at the time we're talking. So
yep.
What? Because I can tell you, I ran 2866 and S4 was my first SARM cycle because that was my only options. And that's what made me so intrigued with them because I'm very vascular anyway because of all the cardio I do, and I'm super lean, and I don't do cycles anymore, which is why I've lost size, and I'm a cardio guy now. I still lift, but at that time, I had kind of bulked up a little bit for me, and I ran that shit, and I was like, what the fuck? Holy shit. And it's like the side effects are very minimal. I got the vision with the S4, at the time, but it didn't really bother me that much, but it was like, whoa. But I got strong, but I felt good, like really good. So with LGD, especially your first time and that being your first cycle, I'm sure you responded like, whoa, with it. What did you get from it? What did you feel like on it? And obviously the experience must have been good because it made you want to run more SARMs. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I remember my first cycle, I was taking 5 milligrams of
Okay.
LGD a day.
Okay.
So, I mean, not crazy high, not
No.
like, nothing like some people are taking 10, 20, 30, 40. I even heard like just ridiculous numbers. I was like, I'm going to start with 5.
Right.
And I think I did that. It was either 6 or 8 weeks. Not a crazy, crazy cycle,
No.
but I got way more than I was actually expecting from it.
Cool.
All of the reviews on it, everybody was like, oh, with LGD, you're going to get kind of big and you might hold some water and get puffy. It's a great bulker. And after like a couple days, I was like, my veins are popping out. Like,
Yeah.
I got striations. I'm like, I don't think I'm holding a bunch of like nonsense water on me. Like, I'm looking good.
Yes.
Like, looking cut up. Everybody's like, oh, you're going to get big and fat kind of looking
Ah,
taking it. And I was like, that is not the case.
no.
5 milligrams a day. And I was like, wow, this is not creatine. This is a whole nother league.
No. And that bothers me because LGD does not convert to estrogen.
No.
And I think and I assume that a lot of people get water from it because they think because it's bulking, it's their diet, not so much the compound itself. um it doesn't hold water, so I'm lost, and it also brings into question the quality of the LGD that you're getting. Now I know that 3303 is a drier compound, so to speak, and it can get you stronger and bigger, but 4033 is extremely strong. So I struggle with the people that preach that it holds water, and you obviously ran it. And how was your diet when you ran it?
I think back then when I first really started trying, my first SARMs, I was like chicken and rice and that's it.
Right.
So I was actually I had a pretty good diet. Now not to say I eat like shit, but I do eat things I like,
Right.
but you can do it with a balance. Like I don't need to just eat chicken and rice.
Sure.
I'm like, I can have things I like. I mean, I eat a lot of other things, Greek yogurt.
Yep.
I like my protein pancakes. I even like pasta, shit like that. You can eat it. You don't need to be just a chicken and rice guy. But at the time when I was taking LGD, I was a chicken and rice guy because I
Right.
was like, my diet's got to be locked in. I took it very serious,
Good.
as you should. You
Yep.
should take this stuff very seriously.
How was your testosterone suppression when you took LGD? Because you did take not really what I would call a full dose, but you took enough to get the results. No, no, I don't advise ever going over 10 milligrams of LGD. 4033. A lot of times 3303 is ran at 20, which I don't have a problem with, so to speak. But I max my recommendations out at 10. So you even went a fraction of that. So what was your any side effects, and what was your testosterone number after you ran it, suppression wise?
I didn't have any side effect. I think actually when I did LGD for the first time, I noticed I was a little more thirsty than usual.
Okay.
I think some people get that, some people don't, but I
Yep.
was just like, my throat's dry.
Right.
I need more water.
Yep.
That was the only thing I noticed. Some people get weird side effects. They feel off, they feel goofy. I've even heard people saying, like, oh, I think I got gyno from LGD. And I'm like, listen, I got nothing except feeling thirsty.
Right.
And my suppression wise, I did my LGD cycle and then just like an over the counter, like generic PCT they sell at the supplement store. No Clomid, no Nova, no HCG. I wasn't getting into any of that back then.
Right.
Now,
Obviously, yeah.
there's a time and place for those drugs, definitely.
Right,
But
for sure.
back then, just some over the counter PCT from the supplement store. And before and after, I think I did my blood work probably a couple weeks after my PCT. I did, your 3 or 4 week PCT, taking a couple of those little pills a day. And my test was right back.
Yeah.
So not a huge suppression, if any. And then I guess the PCT must have worked.
Sure.
But a few weeks after, it was right back. So,
and because you ran a fraction of not a fraction, but kind of like a half of a full dose, and a lot of times younger guys, their test bounces back a lot faster, and you'll notice you're good, and you'll notice as you get older that it and ran more cycles, it's a lot more difficult to get your test to come back. that testosterone or the PCT, I'm sorry, that you used. Do you remember what was? Did you look and see what was in that you used?
Oh shit.
And that you may not remember that far back.
I don't even remember. I was just at the supplement store. The guy was like, "If you're gonna try SARMs, take this PCT
Oh
after." And I
fuck!
was like, "All right."
Not the supplement store guy. Oh, I'm just glad you made it out okay with that. The supplement store guys that needs to be avoided at all costs. But
I know. Yeah, that wasn't. I mean,
it's okay, bro. I mean, fuck, I've done some of the stupidest shit that I knew better than doing. I mean, we all do it. That's how we learn, and that's how we. The best teachers have made the most mistakes, right? That's why
yeah,
I'm a good teacher, because I've made so many fucking mistakes, and I can admit that, But that's how you help people, is by explaining what you did good and what you did wrong, right? So, do you have any peptide and nootropic experiences that you want to talk about?
the peptides I haven't gotten into yet, but I'm
Yeah,
starting to, think about employing some of them.
yeah,
Just off the rip, I think BPC 157 and TB 500 are going to be the first ones that I try, just because I hear great things, a lot of good healing properties from them. And
yes,
not that I'm old, but it's like, I want to like be healthy. I want to make sure my joints don't go on me. I want to make sure like this engine is firing as it should, so that I can just get my lifts in, like hit it hard and not have to worry about injury.
yes.
So yeah, I haven't tried any of the peptides yet, but I'm kind of excited to.
So the two that you mentioned are life-saving for a lot of people, and I can say firsthand with certainty, especially that first time I ran TB 500, I was like, whoa, the shit is the real deal. And it really is. And it does help you to avoid having to use HGH for your healing. And these are specifically, you know, made for healing purposes. It's not like HGH that is multifaceted. These are directly involved in healing. And one of the things that I recommend was SARMs and peptide healing stack is the two that you mentioned, the TB and the BPC, with MK677, MK2866. And although LGD 4033 isn't like a primary on healing, it has some secondary benefits, and it fits in nicely because then it adds in some other, obviously, strength, size. So if you don't want to do that, fine, but it's a great addition to the healing stack. But that's a great stack. A couple that are good to start with for peptides, depending on your goals: ipamorelin and CJC 1295. And
Yep.
then if you're looking to cut, HGH fragment is a good one to start with. Now there's new ones out there, but some of them, semaglutide, AOD, those can have some side effects you may not want to deal with, tezofenazine, but they do work. But there's so many fucking options and different things peptides do. I mean, as you know, but those are good ones to start with. You may want to look at, for the future. The ipamorelin and CJC are great ways to start. So I think you'd benefit greatly from those. And I'd be intrigued to hear your experiences after you use them, for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the semaglutide. I think that's really taken Hollywood by storm
Oh
right now.
man.
So much so that all of like my aunts and uncles have started taking it. They're like, "We got to lose weight. We're taking semaglutide." I'm like, Ozempic, like the diabetes medication, like
Yeah.
you're taking this. They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "But you don't have diabetes. Like, you might want to not do that."
And that's why I'd always tell people, please, like, read into some of these, because some of them, it's not that they don't work. You know what I mean? That's not it. But you need to understand, like, I'm very much against clenbuterol, right? For example, because I know the damage it does. And it's like, this is a fucking asthma medication, and it's used in very small doses, and you're using it this way and don't understand the implications. Or even Clomid and Novadex, one being a fertility drug and one being a treatment for breast cancer. Do you think that you should stay on those for extended periods of times, or use them when you don't need them? It's shit like that people think about it. When you're doing TRT, it's like it serves a purpose as long as you're using it right.
Yeah.
So I just hope people fucking consider that shit. But when did you, what age were you when you ran your first testosterone cycle? And kind of walk me through. I know you said you did test only first, which I love. That's always my recommendation. Because if you do multiple compounds, you don't know how they're affecting you and what your tolerances are. And then you learn if you're estrogen prone or not with test and how your body's responded to outside stimulus. So I know you said you did test, and I think test S23 was your second. Walk me through when you started and what your experience is like so far.
Yeah, so it was probably all right. So if I started my SARMs, I think I started, yeah, like I said, my first SARM was right around 24, and then I think 25 ish was my first steroid
Okay.
cycle. So I did, my test E for 10 weeks, and then I took 9 months off. And then I went, did my second cycle, my test, and my S23, took 9 months off,
Smart.
So I did like the one a year. And then about what is it, September now? So probably 5, 6 months. I think back in April, I started on like a TRT regimen, which I started off doing 200 milligrams of testosterone a week.
Okay.
After a couple months, I got my blood work checked and the numbers were just through the roof. So I backed it down to 150 a week.
Right.
So yeah, lately I've been at 150 milligrams of testosterone a week. Actually, just last week, I'm starting to slowly up the dose. Now I'm going to do a little cycle, test, throw in some Primo and a little bit of Anavar too.
Okay. So Primobolan's my favorite compound. I've talked about this for years and years and years, and test Primo Anavar really is my favorite cycle. So I think you're going to absolutely love that as long as you've got, quality Primobolan. There's a lot of fakes out there, which I'm sure you're aware of, and I'm sure you've covered your bases on that. But that's one you're going to love. And you're going to really find that although it's not prominently profound like a Anadrol or a D-ball where you're just getting smacked with gains, this is slow gains where you can consistently see it in the mirror if you're not too overly big, right? Because a lot of bigger guys don't like Primobolan because they can't see and understand what it's doing. But when you can get that and mix it with Anavar, as long as you're not running stupid doses, you're going to fucking love it. I guarantee it. Yeah, and it's going to look really good on you because it's going to cut you up and you're going to feel good. Because one of the things that I say, and I'm assuming you've always felt pretty good on yours, is what's the point in running a cycle if it's full of side effects and you feel like shit? You can't really enjoy it.
So actually, I did try kind of this cycle before. Back, I think I finished that up in January. So this was like over the winter time. I did test. I did some Primo, but I only went up to 300 milligrams.
Okay.
So not much Primo. And then I did Anavar on my lifting days for about a 6-week period, but small amounts of Anavar too. Gosh, I don't even think I went up to 25 milligrams. Okay. It was like 20 milligrams of Anavar.
Yeah, kept it light. That's good.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, man, because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and there's no reason to dive headfirst in and just go for craziness. I always tell people, like, if you're learning to play basketball, do you start shooting fucking 3-pointers or do you start and work your way out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and I could make analogy after analogy after analogy. It's like people that want to run trend on a first cycle. I don't fucking understand where this is upstairs. I mean, I get it because everything in life is instant gratification, but that's not how this works. That will bite you in the fucking ass.
I've had so many buddies that I guess they think tren is like the only steroid out there. They don't really know anything about it. So they'll come to me. They're like, Ed, I'm thinking of hopping on some tren soon. You think that's a good idea? I'm like, are you fucking stupid? Like, what are you? They're like, yeah, I think I'm going to start lifting. I'm going to take some tren. I'm like, you're an idiot.
Dude, I made a video. It's been about a month or two now, and it's called "The Best Way to Use Tren is to Not Use It at All." And this is coming from a guy that I could show you like 8-pack stacks when I was running tren, and I mean the results. But when I start explaining to people what went along with that and how I felt, and it was like some of the worst I've ever felt, it's like, is it worth it? For the picture, is it really worth it? And the answer is fuck no. It's not.
The horror stories I've heard, I think tren's one I'm never going to touch. I say that, and I think I really will probably never touch that. The horror stories you hear, just people feeling like shit. Like that's where like the roid rage comes from. The trend. People are like, I can't sleep. I'm just sweating all night.
Yes.
I broke up with my girlfriend. Now I like guys. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
Oh,
they're like,
fuck.
yeah, trend really messed me up. I was like, I can see. Like,
That one threw me for a loop right there. No offense, but to anybody out there, but that threw me for a fucking loop. Oh shit! I will tell you this. This is just for me personally, and this is so you're aware and everybody else is aware. The part that was the worst for me, because I'm a guy that's like fully in control of my emotions and my mind, is the way that it affected me emotionally. To have something do that to where a guy like me you got to come with me with something fucking drastic for me to be emotionally off. The way that made me feel, I never ever, if you paid me $1 million, I wouldn't want to feel that way again. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's different. But if you're somebody that is overly aggressive or has any kind of emotional problems or depression or anything like that, please don't go near Tren or halotestin, please, or a
yeah.
really super draw, because of how that can make you feel too. But those two especially, oh my gosh, bro, like, whoo! And I'm so glad you have the outlook you do, because there's no reason to really use it, to be honest with you.
No, yeah, and the mental side effects, the depression, the anxiety, like
Yes.
you're either pissed off at the world or like you're crying. Like, I mean, these are just stories people tell me.
Yeah.
Haven't tried it myself. That's been a rule of mine. I stay away from the nandroloons. And I think every like new lifter getting into this stuff, well, just for me personally too, because I want to have kids someday, the nandrolone HPTA suppression is way beyond anything you're going to get with like testosterone or a DHT derivative. I'm like, if you want to be shut down for months and months and maybe even years, yeah, go ahead. Try your Tren, try your Deca, try that stuff out. But like, I think there's a time and place for it. I think it's later in life. I think, is when you want to employ something like that. But at least for me right now, I think the nandrolones just aren't worth it. Trying to plan a family soon. And
No, you're totally right. Now, I've ran Deca and I've ran Tren both. And I did Deca. The best experience I had with Deca, and this is something I don't generally advise, was I just ran it with my TRT, like as TRT, like 100, 200 milligrams with it. And I ran it for
yep.
longer than I like, 14, 16 weeks, which is okay, I guess. But man, it was a good experience because I was extremely dry. I felt really good on it. But that's when you start running it higher, it can be really problematic, even at just like 400 milligrams. And especially when you run it with Tren. And I've seen people do it with Tren just fine. And I've seen people run it solo. But I'm telling you, man, if you have a bad experience with it, like, and what you're talking is all fact, it can fuck you up, like fuck you up bad. And I don't know about you, but there's nothing worse than a libido side effect in my world. Like, that's like the worst debilitating thing. And that did it to me. And I was like, fuck this. I've never run neither one of these again. And I haven't since that. I have not.
Yeah, how is that for you? Because I know there's the notorious Deca dick that everybody loves to talk about.
Dude, to me, because it's never been a problem for me. So when it is, I feel like my whole world's fucked up, because it gets into your head too. And when it gets into your head, it just makes the libido issue worse. And when you've gone through before, that's never really been a problem. And then it is. And it's like, my wife even asked me, is it me? Is something wrong? And then I feel even worse. And then I start thinking about it even more. And I'm like, no, it's not. But, and it's like, no, never again. I don't ever want that fucking feeling again, dude. Like, never. So I think you have a really smart outlook. And this is a testament to you, because you're a research type of guy, that you not jumped into things blindly. And I love that about you, man. Like, and that's why I would encourage people to listen to you, because I am funny about recommending who to listen to. And that's nothing against, because there's a lot of guys that I really like personally, but I disagree with the way that they, preach their stuff. And that's fine. That's the way of life. But I like your outlook a lot, bro. Like, I didn't know all of this about you, and I fucking love it. And I certainly would endorse people to listen to you, because it's awesome that you you do that. How do you kind of convey your messages to people that are watching you, and what are some things that you tend to focus on and kind of preach?
Yeah, I'm a big numbers
Yeah,
guy. So I like to look at numbers. Most of the time when I post a video, it's just coming at you with like cold hard
good.
facts. Whether it's like, you know, dosage, length of time, how much you should do, or if it's like something in calories, how many calories you should eat, or changing your diet, like with this, and this will do this to the numbers. Like I'm a very number oriented guy, but like very simple. I think I can break things down in a way that people understand. Whereas, like, sometimes you watch like a Derek More Plates, More Dates episode, and he's just like, well, exogenous administration of testosterone can have deleterious effects on it. And you lose people because he's like, whoa, that jargon is like next level. Like, people can't
Yeah,
understand it. I feel like I'm very simple in the words that I use. And I use a lot of numbers where people are like, oh, wow, that makes sense. If I eat this many calories, if I take this amount for this long, this is what my level will be,
yes,
So I think I have a very kind of easy to listen to, if you will, style to my videos.
that's awesome.
I don't I don't give too much information, with the deep medical dives, but I tell you how things work in your body and then break it down with the numbers and really just drive the points
And
home.
and I not Derek's obviously super intelligent. I don't think anybody's gonna.
He's a
Yeah,
genius. That dude is,
yeah. So this
next
is
level.
nothing against him for anybody watching, because we all think. I don't know anybody that doesn't think he's fucking intelligent, but sometimes for a lot of people, it turns them off because they don't understand, or he doesn't talk down to people, but it can feel like that when you start doing that. You know what I mean? And I don't get this from him, but I understand a newbie could be like, oh, he's kind of talking down or thinks he's superior, which I don't think he does, but you could get that. So I don't want to call it dumbing it down, because that's not it. It's more like speaking it more plainly, or um, making it simplistic without making it too difficult to understand with scientific terminologies, so to speak. And
Yeah. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Derek's a
no,
legend,
yeah,
man. The information that he puts out is
yeah,
next level. But some of my buddies will listen to it. I'll be like, "Oh, you got to check this guy out. Like, look at this video." And they're like, "Man, I didn't understand
yeah.
any of that." And I'm like, "All right, all right.
And I
Let me
would say
let me make
he's
it
he's really
simple."
good for more advanced people that really grasp it, that need more
Yeah.
understanding, and that's cool. Everybody's got their own preferences, and some people want deep dives, but I think the majority of the people, it's a lot easier when you're first learning to get it broken down kind of easier, or more rational, I guess, so to speak, and not as big a terminologies until you have to learn a lingo when it comes to PEDs, because there's clearly a different lingo for things and different terminologies and short phrases. I mean, even PCT, if you don't, I mean, you got to start with simple stuff to learn and understand it, right? And so
Oh yeah.
it needs to be broken down and explained, and I think the way that you do it is really awesome. So that's cool, man. Um, what has been your best and worst experiences so far with PEDs use, and what's some of the craziest shit you've been asked?
Hmm. Let me think. What would be my worst experience?
Hopefully, you haven't had anything too terrible.
I feel like, knock on wood, I really haven't had like a bad experience. I know people like they'll have reviews where it's like, this was my cycle from hell that I'll never do again. But for me, I can't really pinpoint like one where I was like, I'll never do that again. Like, that was awful. Like, thankfully, up until this point, everything has been pretty smooth sailing. And every cycle that I've ever ran, I've been like, wow, I got some great benefits out of that. I felt good.
But you've been a little
So
bit
I'm hoping to keep
you've been
that
a little
rolling.
bit more conservative with what you've done, which is smart. And I don't have you ran anything crazy yet, or anything? I mean, what would you say is the strongest thing you've ran? SARMs wise, probably S23, I assume. But what about steroid wise?
Yeah, storms wise, definitely S23. Steroid wise, the only ones I've ran so far, test primo and
Okay, all right.
Anavar.
Well,
I haven't even bothered with the other ones just because I feel like to build a good physique, you don't really need the
No,
other
a little bit
ones.
goes a long, long way. It really does. What is
Like I have a lot of buddies that are just like, oh, I'm gonna load with D ball, and then I'm gonna add my Deca in, and then trend for the second half of my cycle, and then I'm gonna cut with the
ah,
Winstraw. And I'm like, oh my god, dude, like, are you okay? Like, I look better than you, and you're on like fucking 3 grams of gear, and I'm sitting over here on like 400 tests, 300 primo.
yes.
Like,
I think okay, so what I've gathered and just from my personal, it's like you start looking at, oh my gosh, this does this and this does this and this does this. But what you don't realize is like you can't even see what's doing what. You just assume and like you'll start thinking in your head, oh, it's got to be this that's doing that because that's what it's supposed to do. But you never really learn what something's doing when you start blasting 7 and 8 different fucking things, and you don't give
yeah,
yourself the chance to even truly learn about them. You're just going on assumption from what you read and what people tell you. But everybody's different, man, like how they respond. And I think people need to be aware of that. Is there something that you haven't ran yet that you're looking at going, okay, I think like, so I'm assuming for you, like something that may be intriguing is maybe like a Masteron or a Winstraw or maybe like a T-ball or something like that. Is there anything you're looking at that in the future that you're going to plan on doing or trying or?
yeah, maybe a Masteron. I definitely would try that. And then further on down the road, I do want to try
Okay.
NPP. I've had my eye on NPP for a while, but I don't want to try it just
Yeah.
yet. But I heard a lot of good stuff about that one, and I'm kind of excited. I do want to try that at some point.
I would just, I
Other
would
than
tell you with
that,
NPP, if you're going to do it, don't go crazy on the dose. And a lot of times with a DECA or NPP, people are so concerned about how should I run test way higher? Should I run it way higher? There's no correct answer to that because everybody's different. What I've always kind of stood by is keeping the doses equal or very close. Test maybe just a slight bit higher, but NPP being a short
yep.
ester, something to maybe look at is test prop and NPP 6 to 8 weeks, 7,500 milligrams every other day. There's really no need to go any higher than that. I mean, in all reality, and you can kind of get a gauge on your prolactin response, your estrogen response, how they kind of coincide and how they work together. And you'll see some fucking pretty sweet results, especially on your frame with it.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people goof up too. I like that you mentioned that the ratio. You said you keep it about one
Yeah.
to one, or maybe a little bit higher, because you hear stories where people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna just run my TRT dose 100, 150 of test," and then they're like, "I'm gonna do 700
Oh,
of Deca," and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like,
it's got nightmare written all over it, man. Seriously.
I mean, like, I feel like for every like one out of 100,000 people that might work, but for the most part, you're like, oh, dude, you're just asking for side
Yes,
effects.
it's true, man. I fucking love the way that your beliefs are on this. I really do, man. It's a breath of fresh air for me. And as you build your YouTube, you're going to see that there's bros that will come at you for being more conservative, but you're going to get a big following of people that love you for it. And that's part of this. So I kind of want you to know what you'll kind of get. I just at this point I've done this so long, my skin is so thick I could give a shit really what it, and most people are pretty cool at this point now, but you'll go through that. But just disregard it and just always tell them, hey, I appreciate the fact that you got a different opinion. It's not my belief. And hey, maybe my channel is not for you. It's cool. But if it is, thanks for stopping by, you know?
Dude, and the thing is, especially nowadays, you see so many bodybuilders that are dropping dead at a young age, and you're like, oh my God, what the heck's
Yeah.
happening? It's like, this is a problem. Like, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So, like, my message that I preach is like, keep it simple. Don't go crazy. Nothing over the top. You really don't need it. You can look great doing the basic things at a moderate dosage. And with all the kids out there on TikTok and
Oh,
Instagram, like, dude, everybody's just smacking drugs all over the place. Let me try this, let me try that. And I'm like, all right, you can
right.
do it, but if you're gonna do it safe, do your research. Don't just start taking shit because like your buddy told you this is a good idea. Like it there's so many kids that are like, oh man, I want to try this or I'm gonna try that. I'm like, did you research it for a couple years first? And they're like, well, no, but I'm like, do your research, but
And that's the thing about social media. I'm not going to be one of those douchebags that's like, oh, social media ruined the world and all that, because there's a lot of stuff on there that's helped me and has helped you. And, there's good
Oh
ways
yeah.
to use it, but there's a lot of fucking bad that comes from it too. And so all I can say with that is to just be careful when something sounds over the top, or it's like somebody super young or just like careless. Use your fucking head. You know, if you think something sounds off, it probably is. You know, like, and I get it. You see somebody that looks huge or like has big results, but there's a lot of guys that looked huge with big results that are either fucking dead or end up with some serious problems that you just don't hear about
Yeah.
anymore. You know, they just disappear or fall off.
And the thing is too, as long as you got like a solid workout routine in place, you got your diet down, you're going to look good taking a little bit of gear. There's some guys I talk to in the gym, and you'd be surprised the amount of people that just take all these crazy drugs and they don't even look like it at
Exactly.
all. I'm like, you're on this much of that, and that. Like, I would have never guessed, dude.
And
Like,
you know what part of the problem is, bro? It's like a lot of people have this misconception that the gear is going to do all the work for you and that look,
yeah,
a lot of these monsters, one, they have genetics that none of us could ever fathom having. Two,
yeah,
these guys live the most regimented lives. They're pretty miserable with their diets, you know, and they are animals with their training consistency, and they are on fucking point with everything. Like, you don't just get results by just taking shit. You have to have everything dialed in. I mean, you can
yeah.
get away with some things like on trend, for example, and I think that's part of the intrigue too, is the nutrient partitioning and things. But you have to be dialed in, or this shit does not work like you think at
Yeah.
all. So, I mean, it's cool though that I see like you are not new to this, but you're newer, but you're so your mindset is so good. Like, it really, really is. And what I love about somebody like you that's a little bit younger is that you're going to help a lot of younger guys that are going to be looking at you too. Because while I'm a very cool older guy, not that I'm fucking old, but as you start to get my age at 40, 41, it's like some people think you're a teacher, and I don't come across like that, like a douchebag. But with you being younger and having the mindset and the personality you do, I really want to stress people to check Ed out, because he's really, really, really onto something here. And he's definitely somebody that I would be fully confident that you listen to moving forward. And I think you're going to do great, man. I really have full confidence in that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's definitely where my message is kind of aimed at. It's more of the younger
Yes.
guys that, they're going to do it. You can't stop them from doing it, but teach them the right way
Yeah.
to do it. So like, I'm not out here training guys for a bodybuilding competition that have been, lifting for 20 years. That's not what I'm putting out. My content that I'm putting out is for guys that are first starting to step into the SARMs, the first couple steroid cycles. They're trying to figure out how to plan it, what to do, what to run with it, how long to. So it's all of just like when you're starting to dip your toes in the water and you want to do it the safe way. That's kind of where my videos are aimed at.
Yes. I love it, bro. I really do. It's been awesome talking to you. I hope that I can have you on for a part two. And especially, it will be cool after the next season on MTV comes out, so we can kind of talk about that. And then if you've ran anything new, we can talk about that and some more. I think the PED side of this is going to be really intriguing to people too, on top of learning about you. And now that we've learned about you, so guys, I fully, fully encourage you, which I would have beforehand, but even more so now, to go check Ed out on YouTube and Instagram, especially. Ed, give out your information on where people can follow you and subscribe so that they can go check you out.
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram. It's ed610_. Couldn't get the ed610. Somebody took
Douchebag.
that. So you got to add the
Douchebags.
underscore at the end. YouTube is ed610. Twitter, ed610, I think. I never check Twitter. Don't even follow me there. Uh, what else do we got? Snapchat. I actually post some good like workout videos and stuff on Snapchat. My Snapchat is sexy
I
Ed.
love it.
Very important.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Guys, check Ed out, please. Definitely follow him on Instagram and YouTube, especially. He's got some really cool shit that he posts on there. But Ed, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on here. getting to know you more for me personally, I definitely am going to keep in contact with you and keep talking with you. And I really hope that we can have you on again moving forward. So if there's anything else you want to say before we sign off, go for it.
Hell yeah. No, I appreciate you having me. I mean, this has been a great talk. I think we definitely got to get
Yes.
on again, do some deeper dives, get more into the nitty gritty of the PED use, because I mean, I think that's what people really want to
Yes.
see. So I'm excited to get to start talking about that some more. And man, it's
Hell
been
yes.
real. I've known you for like a while now, believe it or not, from my early days of researching, but it's great to actually sit down and get to talk to you. So this is awesome.
Absolutely, brother. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. Ed will be back. Make sure that you check him out and stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli signing off.